Just getting, excuse me, just getting started here. Just waiting for a few more people just to join. I'm going to be breaking down the Toyota Save Mart 350 from Sonoma today. Going to be looking at my cheat sheet. Going to be sharing my screen here shortly so you can look at it. It's the members only cheat, so it's going to be showing my core plays, which are in green. Blue are going to be in GPP. Value plays that I like the most are going to be in yellow. The ones that aren't highlighted at all don't necessarily mean I'm not going to be using them. I'm just trying to tune it up a little bit so it's a little bit better for those not making maybe 50 to 100, 150 lineups in some of those contests. So if you're doing like 5 to 10 lineups, I would suggest probably just concentrating on the green guys a little bit with a mix of the yellow guys for value in there. And then if you're expanding, getting more into the 20 max, say on DraftKings or some of the bigger contests on FanDuel there as well, I like to dig in. I will start touching on those blue GPP / secondary plays there as well for me this week. So I'm just going to go and we'll go ahead and share the screen so you can see it now. We've got a few people in here. So just give me a second here and I will turn that on. Okay, now we've got the sheet up. This is my members only DFS NASCAR cheat sheet. So what we're going to do, first of all, is just look at some track history. I'm just going to go and kind of go through the sheet for anyone that's new to the sheet and just kind of show you a few things about it. So we've got some information on here. You know, we've got overall rank. We'll talk about that in a second. We've got car number, manufacturer. We've got driver, DK and FanDuel. We've got track history, looking at the last 2 years of information at this track, Sonoma. We've got career track history. We've got track type history, current form, season form. Something I've added this week, and I'll do different things every week depending on what the track type is I put together DraftKings and FanDuel averages on the last 4 races. So Sonoma, Watkins Glen in 2018 and Sonoma, Watkins Glen in 2017 there as well. So you can kind of have a look at that. That information is also down here, road courses last 2 years, if you want to look at points on each individual race, not just the average. We've got last 6 races at Sonoma if you want to start going over that. You can look at all the leaderboards. We've got DraftKings, FanDuel scoring, and then down at the bottom is something I use for my research as well. Shows you how many guys picked up positive place differential, double-digit place differential, laps led, 20 plus, 50, 100 plus, the correlation from start to finish, which can be important depending on, you know, that'll help me decide how much weight I put on qualifying or practice speeds, that type of thing. How many started top 10 finished there, how many started between 11th and 20th that finished top 10, and how many started outside the top 20 and started top 10. So I use that. I look at the last 6 races. I do get this information from driveraverages.com as well as racingreference.info. Both excellent sites. Get over and check those out. That's where I pull this stats from. So you can look at it from there. All that information comes back into this cheat sheet. And then as the weekend comes on, we go over and we start looking at the practice and qualifying. So this week practices were on Friday. We had practice 1, practice 2. So I've got the rank as well as the lap time. Same for practice 2. And then practice 2, with there being more cars that were out there. I believe there's 18, 19 cars that ran 10 laps. I've got those 10 lap averages ranks on here as well. And then I take a look at the practice average. So practice 1 and practice 2 ranks, their average ranks in those practices, qualifying, and then practice qualifying differential. Just gives us a little bit of a look into some guys that can give us some place differential. So for instance, we're looking at green here, so we want the good guys in the negative. Clint Boyer started 14th, but had a really fast car, averaged 5.5 in his 2 ranks, so he was 7th and 4th in the 2 practices. Gives him a -9 rating. He's got a faster car. What that's pretty much telling you is just giving you a hint into who's got a faster car than their qualifying time. Can give you those place differential points, which is a little bit more important on DraftKings, but can definitely help you out. So we got a first question up here. Is Dominator going to be important this week? I don't believe it is going to be very important this week, and we'll go here and we'll have a look at the last 6 races at Sonoma, and I'll tell you why. First of all, we go and we look at 100 plus laps. Well, there's only 110 laps in the race, so very rare we're going to see anyone totally dominate the race. But we start looking at 50 plus. Who's led about half the race before? Last year we had 1 driver to lead 50 plus. We start scrolling over and we see that it has only happened that once in the last 5 races, 2 in the last 6. So that kind of takes the 50 lap drivers out. And then 20 laps, 2 drivers, 4 drivers in 2016, 2 drivers in 2015, 3 drivers in 2014, and 1 driver in 2013. So it's even very rare that we see more than 2 drivers lead more than 20 laps in a race. So I don't think it is as important. I'm going to be more looking at the place differential. Why you would think a track like this is maybe not as important when looking at the double-digit place differential upside. We see we had 9 here last year, 7 in 2017. So there is a chance for double-digit place differential. I think the reason for that is there's a lot of strategy that goes on to get guys track position throughout the race. In these stages, especially, a few laps left in the stage, are guys going to try and get those stage points, or are they going to pit, 2 laps early before they close the pits, and get out there and get some track position, which is going to help them, more towards winning the race versus getting points in that stage or at the end of that stage. So that kind of strategy definitely leads to some double-digit place differential. When we start looking at qualifying this week, I think there's definitely some drivers that have a chance to get double-digit place differential. For instance, we've got Clint Boyer. He would need a 4th place finish. I think he's got winning upside. Excellent. Kevin Harvick, he's got the #1 track history here. He starts 23rd, so he's a good candidate. Kurt Busch starting 16th. Excellent track history, double-digit place differential upside. Eric Jones had a flat tire in qualifying. He's starting 32nd. So that's definitely going to qualify him as a double-digit place differential upside. I would say the same for Eric Almirola. Probably more GPP, I guess, that Eric Almirola would, because he's looking at a top 5 or better. But then we've got, that's pretty much it. So I'm kind of predicting we see 4 or 5, maybe even 6 drivers with double-digit place differential this week. So I'm more looking at that. But finish position is definitely going to be #1. I myself am playing a little bit more FanDuel here this week than DraftKings. Just the way it worked out, I kind of pick one site every week that I really, really concentrate on. I do have 5 lineups on DraftKings, but I'm looking at about 30, 35 on FanDuel here this week that I'll be finishing once I'm done here with this video. Okay, so we've got some drivers in blue, so I'm just going to paste here in the chat. Green is going to be core, blue are GPP / secondary plays, and yellow are value plays. So if I'm only doing, say, about 5, 6 lineups, I'm probably only looking at the green and the yellow, because the green are going to be my core guys. If you're expanding past those 5 lineups, you're getting into the 10 to 20 lineups, maybe even 30, 40 lineups like I'm looking at this week. You're going to want to dip into those blue guys and even some of the white guys there as well that aren't highlighted at all. Just have to expand your player pool with more lineups that you make. So that's kind of why I color it that way. I want you to know which guys are going to be my main core, going to be almost in, I would say, 40 to 60% of my lineups are the guys that are going to be in green, a little bit less exposure to the guys that are in blue. And then yellow is going to be kind of right there in the middle, just because you're going to need those value guys to get 1 or 2, sometimes even 3 of those high-end drivers in your lineup. Yeah, no problem at all. Definitely ask questions if you got any questions at all. You can ask me in this chat. You can ask me in the comments to this video below. You can ask me in the DFSR chat. You can ask me in the RotoPros chat. Those are the 2 main sites I work for. You can check out my article. You can leave comments there for daily fantasy sports rankings. And like I said, I'm in those other chats pretty much right up here until lineup lock. So definitely fire away any questions that you've got this week. So this week is going to be a little bit different. If you're used to watching Sonoma races, first time since 1997, they have brought back the carousel. I'm just going to try and find a picture here while I'm discussing it. So pretty much it's taking, I'll just go and find it here. There's a good picture of it that kind of explains everything that I was going to explain here, but what it's doing, this is the perfect picture right here. So this is on NASCAR.com. So since 1997, what they've done up here at turn 4 is they've just continued on right over to turn 7. This year they're bringing the carousel back, so there's going to be a turn 4 and 5 down into 6, and this turn in here, what happens is it's a blind, so you're coming up a hill and then boom, you're turning left right away into a drag, kind of a drag strip right here, and then turn 7 is going to be a nice passing area as well. So I think it's going to create a little bit more passing. It's going to be exciting for sure with that blind turn. I think it was a great idea bringing that back. What it does is not one driver in the series, in the Cup Series, has driven a Cup car on this setup before. So keep that in mind. I think Jimmy Johnson said he was here in a different style of car not too long ago using the carousel, but it wasn't a cup car, so I'm not really looking to dig deeper into that kind of data. So should create for an exciting race. Go ahead and we'll look at some core plays now. Kyle Busch definitely stands out for me. Some people may be scared off a little bit watching highlights from practices. He went through that turn where you're supposed to be, the old route. He kept going that way a little bit, but he did say in an interview he was just pushing to see what his brakes were like, for the race, so that he can make those corners and maybe use it to get an extra passing opportunity for himself during the race. So definitely like Kyle Busch this week. Going to be looking at him. He's going to be key for me. Looking at his track history here. He finished top 5 in 3 of his last 4, including a win in 2015. He's got 2 career wins here, the other one coming back in 2018. Practices, he was 8 and 16th, didn't post a 10-lap average, starting 7th, but they're an elite team. They've proved it all year. He's been good here. Go over and we'll look at the career track history. I believe he's one of the 2 drivers with multiple wins here. Yeah, his teammate Martin Truex Jr. as well, and that takes me. He's my other core play. I like pairing those 2 together on FanDuel. It's a little bit easier because the value plays come with a little bit more value. You can go a little bit more stars and scrubs over on FanDuel. Chase Elliott and Logano going to be a little bit more GPP plays for me, starting inside the top 5. Neither of them showed top 10. Practice speeds. The good thing for Logano was he in 10-lap averages, he was 5th in final practice, so definitely looking at that. Clint Boyer is my number 1 driver this week. He was number 1 in my model before practice. He's still number 1 in my model post-practice, especially considering he started 14th. He's going to give us some place differential upside as well as winning upside. He has been very consistent here. He's finished 3rd and 2nd in his last 2 races, 3rd in 2015 as well. He's actually finished top 10 in 7 of his last 8. He had an electrical issue in 2016 when he was with H. Scott Motorsports. That's kind of between where he was with Michael Waltrip and Stuart Haas. So not really looking at that. He's been probably the most consistent driver here. 7th and 4th in the first 2 practices. He was fastest in 10-lap averages, and he was 2nd fastest when looking at 15-lap averages. I don't have that on the sheet. That was just something that they showed on the Fox ticker during practice yesterday. If you want to actually see that information, I think they showed the top 5 and 10-lap averages and 15-lap averages. It's kind of a screenshot. Go over to, I believe, Bob Pockers's Twitter account or Jeff Gluck there as well. Kurt Busch comes in number 3 in my model this week, starting 16th. So again, it gives you place differential value there. He has been excellent here as well. Top 10s in 4 straight in 7 of his last 8 races here. The other finish was a 12th place in 2014. He's led laps here. He's been consistent. First practice wasn't so great at 17th. They definitely found in second practice they had the 2nd fastest 1-lap speed, and they were 10th in 10-lap averages. So definitely looking at him here this week as well as a core play for me. So looking at a few more questions before I go on. Do you need to punt this week? I will get down there. Actually, I'll just touch on that now. So most of my lineups, like I said, going stars and scrubs. If you want to pair Kyle Busch and Truex, or Boyer and Busch is a popular one for me. If you're going stars and scrubs, I like going down into this range. These are the yellow guys. We'll talk about them. I like Parker Kligerman. He stands out here for me. I'm just going to go look at his road course. Started in 29th, first of all. He showed good speed in final practice. He was 6th overall. And then we just go look at his road course averages here. He has raced 2 road courses, both last year. So he's raced Watkins Glen and Sonoma. He finished 23rd and 24th in those 2 races. So, he started 27th and 34th, so he has come back in the field. Picked up double-digit place differential at Sonoma here last year. Picked up 11 spots. It picked up 3 at Watkins Glen. Looks like he's a really, he's got the grasp of these road courses starting 29th. I'm not looking to get him, more than like a 25th place finish this week. But for 3,500 on FanDuel, he's someone I will be running a lot in my stars and scrubs where I'm pairing 2 or 3 of these top green drivers in the 10,000 plus range on FanDuel. Definitely like Ty Dillon as well. Both Dillon brothers stand out to me this week. I like Ty. He's just a little bit cheaper. And as you can see, he's starting 31st, so he starts a little bit further back in the field. Showed top 25 speed. Little down on the 10-lap averages, but I think the short run could be key. So I'm definitely looking at him. 6,000 on both sides, 5,900 on DK. Sorry, Matt DiBenedetto, more of a GPP play, starting 19th. I think his upside's more in that 15th to 19th range, so I'm not looking at a whole bunch of exposure to him. I like Tydale and Kligerman more. They're both cheaper. They both give us more place differential upside. De Benedetto, Paul Menard's going to be a core play for me. I've got him in yellow just because I like going yellow with these guys that are in the lower end range, but he's definitely going to be a core value play for me this week, starting 24th. He was 11th and 18th, so he's showing top 20 speed, and he's been good. I'm just going to find his numbers here. At that price and his consistency here, so his last finishes here: 26th, 11th, 16th, 13th, 5th, 14th, 20th, 17th. So he's like a 15th to 20th place car. So starting 24th this week, I'd definitely be looking at him at 7,200 on DraftKings, 7,600 on FanDuel. Austin Dillon's kind of in the same boat for me as De Benedetto this week. Starting 26th, I'd like him to start back a little bit further just because he really hasn't been extremely consistent this season outside of the tracks where, the aerodynamics and the new rules package, they've showed a lot of speed, him and Hemrick. But here at Sonoma on road courses, he's raced here twice in the last, 4 times: 16th, 18th, 22nd, 17th, and 17th. So he does have that top 20 upside most definitely, starting 26. But I'm leaning a little bit more Paul Menard than Dillon this week, but a little bit more Dillon than De Benedetto when looking at ranking those value plays that I have marked on the sheet this week. So I hope that answers your question. Just going through a few more comments here. All GPP this week, and I totally understand on the all GPP. I don't play very much cash games whatsoever with NASCAR. Just the variance is just so high, and with a small window, there's only 38 drivers in this race, and you can probably start by marking off 5 to 8 of them, erasing them right off your player pool right away. So that really narrows things down. So I like going a little bit more. What I'll do for GPP is I will I'll build a Kyle Larson, Kurt Busch, and Clint Bowyer, those 3 on FanDuel, and then I'll just mix in the other 2 with whatever combinations I can until I run out of combinations with the drivers that are in my player pool, and then maybe I will take Clint Bowyer out and I'll go Busch and Larson, and I'll go down to Bowman, and then I'll do the same thing, and I'll go over and over and over depending on how many lineups I am building each and every week. That's the process that I use. Is I'll build a core and I'll build 5 to 10 lamps around that core, switching in the other drivers, and then I will go ahead and switch that core up and do the same thing, and then over and over again, just to make sure that if Bowyer, like number 1, 2, Bowman, and 3, Kurt Busch in my model, I'll put those 3 together. I want to make sure the guys that are ranked high in my model or ranked high in my own personal player pool, I've got a lot of combinations of them. So if those 3 say finish 1, 2, and 3, one of them leads a bunch of laps. Say one of the drivers one week, I don't think there's one here yet, Kurt Busch and Clint Bowyer can both pick up double digit. If they were to finish 1, 2, 3, Bowyer and Kurt Busch pick up double digit place differential points. You don't want to mess up that one other driver in your FanDuel because you're so close to a perfect lineup. So that's kind of why I take that core of 3 drivers and I'll mix in the other 2, mixing and matching just to make as many combinations of that core as I possibly can. So when that core hits, I've got a great chance of finishing high in the GPP. So I'm 100% with you on the GPP, and that's just kind of an insight into my strategy. For DraftKings, it's the same thing. I just go a little bit more balanced on DraftKings as the stars and scrubs is a little bit more. I don't like completely punting 2 guys on DraftKings. And this week it sets up nice. I'm just going to go ahead and sort by DraftKings pricing here on the sheet. There's some excellent ways that you can go balanced on DraftKings this week. Like looking at my core plays here, you've got Kyle Larson starting first. I think he can get out front, probably lead 20. He can be one of those drivers that leads 20 plus laps. I think he leads likely he's showing a really fast car the majority of the whole entire first stage, and depending on strategy, I don't know how much he's going to lead later in the race, but he's got winning upside for sure. So I think he's one of those. If I had to pick 3 drivers that have that 20 to 50 laps led upside, Kyle Larson would definitely be in there. I'd probably go Bowyer and Kyle Busch in there as well. Looking at the practice times, there's actually only 3 drivers. We've got Clint Bowyer, we've got Ryan Blaney, and where is he? Alex Bowman. Those are the only 3 drivers that finished top 10 in both practices. So I'm definitely looking at those guys for sure. That's why I've kind of got them highlighted. Blaney just hasn't, as you can see, he started 9th. He showed, like I said, he's one of the only 3 drivers to finish top 10 in both practices, but his track history hasn't been great. He hasn't been great on the road courses. He did win the Charlotte Roval That was more Jimmy Johnson taking out Martin Truex, but still, if that wouldn't have happened, you know, he would have been top 5 at the road course. So not discounting him whatsoever. I think he's going to be a good play. And in my player pool, he's definitely in there because I'm up in the 20 to 30, 35 plus, depending on how much time I have left here. It looks like we got about 2 hours till lineup lock. Looks like I should have enough time to get all those lineups in. Okay, any other questions? Yeah, no problem. Just fire away on those questions. I definitely go through them about every 5 minutes doing the videos to make sure I don't miss anyone. And then once the video is over, you can definitely check this out as an archive on my YouTube channel. And if you have questions after the video is over, like I said, definitely jump in the DFSR chat, in the Roller Pros chat, leave your comment in the video below. Hit me up on Twitter at Jaeger_bombs9. So is Larson worth having since there is no place differential? Oh, 100%. Like I said, I think he's one of the drivers that leads 20 to 50 laps this week. And if there's only going to be 4 drivers that lead 20 to 50 laps this week, I think it's definitely key to have a few of those. And starting out front and showing that he's had a fast car. He didn't just have a good qualifying time. He showed good speed in practice as well. You're looking at that final practice here. Why can't I find him? There we go. He was first in final practice, third in those 10-lap averages, so I for sure think he can stay out front. Like I said, probably most of the first stage, barring any cautions or anything weird going on, I think he's a driver that can stay out front and lead those laps. So yes, I think he's definitely worth, especially only at 8,500 on DraftKings. That's just too good a value to pass up for someone starting first with that fast of a car. Even on FanDuel, he's a little bit less than some of these other guys, so he's definitely going to be one of my core drivers this week. Driver I didn't touch on, Eric Almirola, starting 15th, gives us some place differential value. He has shown some good track history here as well. Last year was his first season with Stewart-Haas Racing, so that's just kind of what I'm looking at. And he didn't have a top 4. He had one top 15 with RPM in all those other years. In the other 6 races, sorry, one of those races, first one was with Dale Earnhardt Incorporated back in 2008. He's only got the one top 15 finish in 2015 with RPM, but then last year was his first season with Stewart-Haas Racing. He finished 8th, so I think there's definitely upside. And at his price at $8,900 on FanDuel, starting 15th, was third in final practice. I think he's definitely a top play. That's why he's 5th in my model. Definitely going to be a core play for me. Alex Bowman, number 2 in my model, definitely a core play, starting 12th. He's been good here. He's been consistent overall. He's got top 10s in 5 of his last 6, so this is kind of like his best form, I guess you could say, of his career. He also had 3 straight runner-up finishes at, I believe it was Talladega, Dover, and Kansas. So 3 completely different track types, which is very impressive for a young driver to have that kind of success 3 weeks in a row on 3 different kinds of tracks. So definitely like where Alex Bowman is headed in the 88 car. I talked about the value plays. Talked about Blaney. A couple of these, just trying to touch on some drivers I maybe didn't touch on yet. Chris Buescher, 8th in the model. Love him for GPP. A lot of people might stay away from him just because he is starting 10th this week. I was hoping that he'd be outside the top 15, outside the top 20 to get that place differential upside a little bit with him. But starting 10th, he was 3rd in first practice, 14th. He did not show 10-lap average speed, which kind of concerns me a little bit, and that kind of forced me to GPP, and he's kind of the lower end of these blue plays here for me. But looking at his last 2 races here in 2018 and 2017, he finished 12th and 19th. So that upside is definitely there. I think he's going to be super low owned. So if you want to build some contrarian lineups, I think pairing him with some of the chalkier guys is going to help you separate your lineup from the field. Eric Jones, starting 32nd. He's got a ton of place differential upside. He figures he's got a top 15 car. I'm thinking 15 to 20 as well. I guess I don't have him as a core play just because I liked Eric Almirola just a little bit more. I think Jones is going to be chalky. I'm going to be a little bit underweight on him. 19th in my model. That's just kind of one thing that I'm going off of. That practice speed wasn't exactly where I'd like to see it. Had a flat tire in qualifying, which does help that place differential. So I will have him in my GPP this week. So your thoughts on the number 12? Yeah, definitely liking Blaney. Top 10 in my model, starting 9th. Looking at the practice speeds, he was one of only 3 drivers to finish top 10 in both practices. Didn't show a ton of 10-lap average speed, which again kind of concerns me a little bit for the long run. But we could see some short runs if there's some, cautions and things going on like that. We see a lot of restarts, which could happen, especially with the new carousel coming into play, and that blind corner that I talked about, the new passing zone in turn 7. I definitely think we could see some cautions here, and if that's the case, he's got an excellent short run car. The only thing is his, he hasn't been great at Sonoma. That's why I've got him as a GPP play this week. 34th, 23rd with the Wood Brothers, 34th last year, and then 9th with his last season with the Wood Brothers in 2017. So he does. I definitely think he's got 5th to 10th upside, but he's been very inconsistent this season overall. He's either been like top 5 or outside the top 20. So that's the only reason I don't have him in as one of my core drivers this week and more as a GPP play. But I would say, let's just say, for instance, just to make the numbers round, if I'm making 30 lineups, I'm probably going to have him in about 8 to 10. So somewhere in that 20 to 25 to 30% range exposure of my overall player pool, something like that, just because I do like that short run speed for him. I think he's got that upside, like I said, but he's also got that big time downside that he's shown this year as well. Kind of underperformed in a lot of big spots for fantasy. That could leave him a little bit under-owned as well. So keep that in mind when you're building your lineups today as well. I think I pretty much covered it all. I was going to kind of go through. I think I got all the questions on core drivers. Like I said, I talked about GPP strategy. If you're only building one lineup, it's a little bit different. Just build one that you're really comfortable with. If I'm building one, like for a single entry, I'll probably tweak it over and over and try a bunch of different combinations until I'm extremely comfortable with it. But when multi-entering, which is something I've got into more and more with all sports, I'm going to be covering a lot of videos for strategy and that kind of stuff moving forward. What I'm going to, like I said, what I do is I build a core, and then I use that core in, say, 5 to 10 laps, depending on how many I'm doing. But just for instance, use that core of 3 drivers in 5 to 10 lineups and swap in the other 2, 3 drivers, depending FanDuel, DraftKings, 6 or 5 driver rosters, all depends there. And then once I've done that, used all the players in my player pool as the alternatives, I'll go and switch up that core. I'll either switch 2 of the drivers up or 1 of the drivers up or all 3. And just keep going on that route over and over and over again until I built all my lineups, so that, like I said, when my core goes off, I have a better chance of winning the GPP, because it really sucks when you look at the end of the day and you see that you've got the guy that led the most laps, you've got another guy that's got place differential, double-digit place differential, you've got 3 of your 5 drivers or even 4 of your 5 drivers that finished top 5, but 1 was in a wreck. So when you go ahead and you take that lineup and you swapped in the other drivers, you're going to have much more success when your core goes off, especially in GPP formats. Yes, I'm just going to double check on that right now. I just see someone commented Jones and Suarez to the rear. I'm just going to go check out my NASCAR news feed. Scrolling through. Looks like I can't get that quite up exactly where I want to find that. So what I'll do, oh, here we go. Going to the rear, Suarez, he had to change his engine. Jones was an unapproved adjustment because it was an impound race after qualifying yesterday, so they had to make adjustments. That automatically sends them to the rear. Not so hurtful for Jones, who's already started in 32nd, so he goes back 6 more spots. Not totally concerned. That might lower his ownership a little bit, actually. So definitely looking at Jones still. Daniel Suarez, just going to go look at him here on the sheet. He's starting 5th, so I'm actually going to take him right completely off my sheet. Now, I'm not going to completely fade him. Like for people that are in the 100, 50-plus lineups, I think Suarez makes an excellent GPP play. I think now he's going to be extremely low-owned because he keeps that 5th starting spot, but he will start from the rear, and coming through is going to be very hard. The other one is Ross Chastain. He was racing and actually won the truck race last night. So they had Kyle Weatherman, who practiced and qualified the 15 car for him. So he jumps back into the 15 car to race it today. But because of that driver change, he goes to the rear. But I believe he was already, he was at 37th starting position already. So he goes back 1 spot, not using him anyway. So not really concerned about that. So again, once over with that is Suarez, engine change. He's going to the rear. I am not fading him unless you're going less than, say, 10 lineups, 20 lineups. I probably would just stay away from him completely. Too many other drivers in that range that you can like that without all that risk of him starting from the rear, but only, so for anyone that's new to the place differential thing, and what's happening here is Suarez goes to there after qualifying, so he keeps his starting position for fantasy, which is 5th, but he won't start 38th, but because there's a few drivers that go to the back, but say he starts 36th. So he automatically starts with a minus 31 points place differential because his place differential starts at the 5th position. So for him to get positive place differential now, he's got to come all the way through the field and finish top 5. So that kind of has me as a fade. Jones was already starting 32nd, so he's going to go back probably to 36th, 37th, somewhere in there. Not a big change. My stance on him does not change whatsoever. So I hope that answers your question with what's going on there with the changes before the race. I think that is the final news. I'm just going to scroll to the bottom and update this news feed one more time. Looks pretty good. So we got lineup lock. I believe it has just less than 2 hours at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Like I said, if you got any questions, make sure to leave a comment in the video below, in the DFSR chat room, in the Roto Pros community chat there as well, or on Twitter at Jaeger_bombs9. Thanks for checking out the video. I'm going to try and do a live video like this every Sunday morning. Looks like we got lots of people on this morning. It's the first time I've done this in a while. A lot of comments saying, it was very informative. If there's anything that I can add or help you out with, maybe bringing up DraftKings or FanDuel or another spot on the spreadsheet to help you with lineup construction, that sort of thing, definitely give me all the feedback in all those areas that I told you about: Twitter, Roto Pros, Daily Fantasy Sports Rankings. Hit me up on email or in the comments below. Let me know what you guys want to see. I will bring it for the race next week. Thanks a lot, and everyone, let's go get some green screens. Good luck out there.